Thank you very much for having me. Thanks, Sanjay, Sadhna, and Vicky, and Avid. Okay, I'm going to just talk small thing about stories. All of you know about saris and how every woman covets it and wants to wear it. I would like to talk about stories that are behind the loom, and what is it that goes through the weaver's head when he creates textiles. That is very important. Okay, my slides are not the greatest, so I have been working in textiles for 50 years, and I think it's been my life's journey. And I'm just happy to tell you that it's been such a fabulous journey, because what you learn from the weavers and at the loom is something like what Punita says, it just touches your soul. And I think that is something that is the outcome. And my biggest success is today 80% of the weavers can buy me out, and I'm training the third generation. So that's that's about me, yeah? Then, so what is the first thing that you remember other than your mother when you're born? First thing that touches a child is cloth. And cloth remains with you from the time you're born till the time you die. So what is it? Is relationship with the cloth is the most lasting thing that any human being has ever had. Okay, so it has all our memories. So long after we've lost our parents and grandparents, we associate the smell, the touch, the feel. And that is something I think it holds all our memories. That is a great thing. Okay, I'll just talk about the sari as the eternal garment, just a small little thing. And I'm not going to read it because I think a lot of it, you know that textiles were the most famous thing that India was known for. So have you ever wondered how the craft of weaving a sari has survived for 2,000 years? And it's the only textile and only unstitched garment all across the world that's had a continuous use. Every other country is just an occasion wear, whereas in India it's been a continuous thing which takes into context your climate, your culture, the local festivities, and it caters to every kind of bracket. So you have a fisherwoman wearing it one style, you have a bride wearing it a different way, you had a man with a dhoti and the turban. It's all unstitched garments. But how you stylize it is totally up to you. So we are not stuck in a mold of what somebody in a trend tells you this is the fashion for this year. That's what makes it fabulous. So I'm here to tell you about the stories. So how do you think man started wearing clothes? There are little stories that are there all across India. This is one story called Jineshwara. So when people wore leaves and barks, they prayed to Shiva and said, clothe us. So he said, okay, I will clothe you, but you give me a promise first. First is, I will give you the tools to make a loom and the fiber, but you have to give me a promise that it has to be as beautiful as Mother Parvati. And I think weavers across the ages till date have made the most beautiful textiles that the rest of the world has always coveted. So this is Jineshwara. So they prayed to Shiva, and he brought out the smaller god called Jineshwara from the back of his tongue, gave them the 7 colors of the rainbow, and then he said, okay, you weave. So what was the fiber that we used for this? I told you this. The fiber that we thought of using is the lotus stem. Lotus stem is something very significant in our philosophy. Why? Because it came out of Vishnu's navel. That is the mythology of it. But the fact is that be like the lotus stem. Live in muddy waters. Don't let it muddy you or get you affected. Keep your head up and work towards your higher self. And that was very important about why, we hold the lotus as a very important thing. So this is, the lotus stem, I've told you about it. I think I've told you. I hope I'm not going too fast, but I realize I'm the last one and I don't want to test your patience also. No, please go. What happened to the handloom? So all of you must have seen enough pictures, if not really having a look at the handloom. And what he's weaving is in a small village in Andhra, which I am wearing. Okay, and they used to make only vastra, that is a shawl. The beauty of it is the regional issues just get left out. If today's Andhra, it was made. but it was used as a Brahmagantu. Brahmagantu is where they attach the sari to the boy's shawl. It was called a shalya. In our Karaga festival in Bangalore, Karnataka, which is very well known, it never goes without this shawl. So the importance in 3 different regions and how it's played out, and in Karnataka for the Karaga, they use it on the person who's carrying the Karaga. And they have a huge story about Draupadi and how, in spite of having 5 husbands, no one came forward. Yet it was this man who belongs to this community who came and sort of took the shawl and said that I will protect you. So it sort of looks at a larger picture, and it's beautiful. I run a small museum, and one of these people who wears this, from this community, when he knew what I had, he came in, and next week he brought his little child and he said, see, this is where I come from. And it was beautiful for him to explain the story to me, because this is all hearsay, what I'm telling you. Again, this is very interesting because when I found this in Urvakunda, there were 2 women who were widowed and who wouldn't come out of the door. Why? Because they were widowed and there was no man. So I'm talking of so many years. There was a lot of social stigma and how, they thought they were unlucky to come and weave anything for me. And finally, we had to get somebody locally to say, okay, you take it, give it to this man's wife, because they didn't want a man to come into their weaving place. So these are little things that have come right through different areas, Yeah, so in this, weaving is a lesson in patience, as I said. While working, the weaver works with his hands and mind, meticulous planning and concentration. The interesting thing I'd like you to focus on is the yarn should be uniform pressure and tautness, or it'll snap. The entire focus is that he has to weave a good piece, that he cannot afford to have a damaged piece, because it'll become a discountable good and it'll become a financial loss for him. So at this point, when a thread breaks, when you put threads for a loom, you have a goal, you have a focus, you know exactly what you've got to finish within a time limit. The thing is also, when the thread breaks, how do you join it? So this is a little story that even till date, they use the ash of the house in a little bit of water, and they join the threads and they continue the weaving. Now, what is the story behind it? So the story goes that while this community were weaving, and Rama was asking, has anyone seen where my wife has been taken? And this community says, you're talking about your wife, we are destroyed because our looms have been destroyed. All the threads have been broken because there was a low-flying plane or whatever it was that broke the threads. So he said, don't worry, now you've told me which direction she's been taken in. I will give you a boon that you just pray to me and take what is available in the house. The first thing available is ash in everybody's house. So till date, it's unbelievable that till date they use the same thing. I don't know what it is, whether you call it faith or whatever it is, but every broken thread is joined with ash. And it continues. So, it is a very akin to kind of relationships that we break, we nurture, and then we want to rebuild. That is how you have to go on, and life goes on. The other thing that is very obvious is about detachment. The weaver never gets to own what he makes. So it teaches you detachment. In all our philosophy, do your 100%. You have no rights to the fruit of your action, kind of thing. But it's a sad thing that he can never afford to make that sari for his wife. But in earlier times, we had so many festivals, so it necessitated so many kinds of saris and lungis and dhotis. So weavers were having a lot of work. So we did not ever understand when it shifted from being the largest money-making thing in India pre-Britain, pre the British here, till today we have the highest level of suicides among weavers. And it's tragic because we've had a time-tested model where the whole world wanted our textiles, and today, why is it this? Why is it come to something like that? And that is the tragedy that we have. I'd just like to talk a little about all the number of weaver poets that were come out of weaving as such, So the most famous poet, philosopher is Thiruvullar. I don't know how many of you have heard of him. And he's written the thing called the Tirukkural. Okay, it is just a fabulous thing. This was 2,000 years ago, before we talk of anybody. We've heard about Kabir. But Tirukkural is something that is just fabulous, because if you get an opportunity, gives you a life's lesson, two lines on every aspect. And every child in Tamil Nadu, especially among the weaver community, will be singing it. So even if they haven't gone to school, like their parents haven't gone to school, but they just know the Tirukkural. So this is what was fabulous about it. So what is it about weaving that made anybody who was a practitioner, a philosopher, a poet? This is what I'd like to tell you. Then this is Devara Dasamaya, that is in Karnataka. And since I'm from Karnataka, this is again something, he came later, I'm going in order, that was 2,000 years. This was a little after him. So Devara Dasamaya was a Shiva Bhakta again, and he did a lot of penance, and he said that this only way to reach God was through penance and all this. Till Shiva came and said, don't be silly, I don't expect all that. Live a regular life and do service, and that's enough to reach to me. So the kind of things that affected most communities, weaver communities, are these kind of poets. So this man, Devara Dasamaya, was actually a great inspiration for Basavana in Karnataka, who is one of our most famous poet who's written. He is the philosopher and inspiration. Okay, I've spoken about it. I'm not going to talk about it. So what was it? Why do we say that weaving was interdependent? It created a harmonious society because you needed each other, and it wasn't based on caste, community, and gender. So everything interdependency created a kind of a harmony and a respectful society. So among the weavers, they say there are two eyes in society that's absolutely necessary. One is the farmer, and one is the weaver. They are the two eyes of society, without which society won't move forward. So we need food to eat, and we need clothes to wear. But the tragedy is we still need the farmer for our food, but we don't need the weaver for our clothes, because we just press a button and it comes out of the machine. So actually, I think we are responsible for creating this situation where from such a thriving business, we've come down to a point where they're committing suicides. And that is very sad. And as you see, every aspect of it, whether the farmer, the carpenter, and when you talk on sustainability, if you look at it, every part of the loom was made with old rafters. The reeds were made with jawar stems of bamboo. And then the shuttle was made with dead cattle horns. So everything was a reuse and repurpose. So there was just no aspect of waste at all. So this is something I've been working on the last 3 years. It's called the Kamli project that I've been doing. I've been working with the pastoral community. What fascinated me is there is no chemical and there is no machine. And yet, again, in the larger picture that they think they've promised their God, they will do it. Even the glue is out of tamarind seed, and the kind of brushes they make, again, different communities do it. That brush lasts for more than 30 years. It's not like our broom that we need every 3 months. So what was it? There was an excellence when they put their hand into it. There was an excellence. Anywhere you see the weaver, I believe that when you work with your hand, heart, and head, you create magic. And there is, in any arts, of course, that's a fact.
Is that a blanket?
Yes. So in this blanket, this experiment is, they were doing only black blankets, and when they came to me, they said, which boy wearing a jeans pant will walk around with a blanket? And I said, that's true, and they were worried that the system is going to be lost. So how did I infuse something? I said, okay, they've never commercialized it, other than every home in North Karnataka has this, because from birth to death, this kambli has to be there, and it's made with the Deccani wool, not like the soft Himalayan wool that you see. So it's very rough. They have a lot of mythology and stories, and I can go on endlessly. And out of Shiva's locks, I believe the sheep was hidden. So when Shiva scratched his head, the sheep came out. There is a lot of stories that can go on. It's very cute and interesting. So when he put out so many sheep, Parvati said, where are you going to house them? He couldn't manage because they were multiplying, so they made an anthill, put them inside. She put her nose pin and said, this is the mark, they'll stay inside. One farmer, without knowing it, he plowed his field and all the sheep were out again. So she said, now what do we do? So he said, Parvati grumbled at him and said, you created this problem, now find a solution. So he said, okay, I will make these communities. They're called the Kurbas. They're shepherding communities, and they operate Karnataka, Maharashtra, Andhra, and that entire area, pastoral people, and I'll put them in charge. This is their duty. So their duty was to take care of the sheep from the time it was born till the time it passes off. And every practice is just unbelievable. So, I mean, I'm just digressing a little since you asked. The farmer takes the sheep and it enriches the farmer's soil. Okay, he's fed by the farmer. Then he goes on to the next field and he walks the sheep up the mountains. So the old man says, we don't need to go to the gym like you do. So that is something. So he says, we are breathing clean air, we are eating natural food, we are eating things that are beneficial for us, you know. That's why we don't have problems. And in this village called Kargaon, they don't use kumkum. I mean, how forward-thinking they are is something fabulous. There's no priest. Each family takes a rotation at the temple. And all they do is what they call bandara, that is the turmeric. So when you go in, you pray on your own. There's no priest, something, and you take that bandara, that's the turmeric, and put on your forehead. To such an extent, they give so much importance to turmeric that they haven't had a case of COVID in that place. They're saying it's not the idle kurba that's not working, but the man who's shepherding has never had COVID. I don't know about the statistics and things like this, but they believe that, you know, this is what has helped. And they live such a fabulous life because they're taking their god to different villages where they're fed. Okay, where they're fed, and you know, so they're taken care of the feeding, they're taken care of the livelihood, and it goes on.
So there's going to be a pastoralist, a big festival at the end of the year here in Bangalore. So please do watch out for it. There will be some of it in BIC as well. And they will be coming from the Western Ghats as part of this program to look at pastoralist rights.
Okay, I'm not going to talk about Kabir because you've already heard about it. But again, he was a weaver. So this is the other thing. The other thing is this Ittige Bhimbambike. Why I want you to see this is she was there in the 1800s and she taught spinning. She was a child bride and she said, why should women sit at home and be idle? So spinning the charaka was her thing of saying you keep your mind and body occupied by spinning and making yarn, which the weaver could use to weave. This was much longer, much before Gandhiji used the charaka as for our freedom movement. Today there is a temple in Gadag to her, and here you see, instead of a god statue, you see her as the statue. So you have to understand how people or the weaving community, you know, understood why it was so important, women's empowerment at a time when it was much before this. Okay, 2 minutes I'm going to talk about Navagraha in very brief thing. All of you know about Navagraha, the 9 planetary, the planets. So as one example, I will tell you what is related to textile. So each god had its favorite color and its flower and grain. So I'll talk about Shanishwara. Shanishwara, the god of Shani, that is Saturn on Saturday. Saturday, every woman who worshipped the different gods wore different colors, and that is why India is a colorful country. The favorite flower was taken to the temple, or at your house, you prayed with that. What grain they liked, you did it. So it was a very holistic way of looking at it. Shani god, everyone feared Saturn, so they wore a sari in black with the little yellow stripes, again, vegetable dyed, so to protect themselves from Lord Shani, from Saturn. Okay, this, I think I've told you this. I'm not going to run through. quite important enough to tell you about the motive. Every motive was a reflection on why the girl had to imbibe these qualities when she was growing from puberty to a womanhood. So why did you have these different things? Have the intelligence of an elephant, speed of a horse, talk sweetly as a parrot, has eyes as beautiful as a fish, and it can go on endlessly. That is one. The other side is a Kasuti sampler. This we did in 1974 to document every kind of stitch. Why it's important to tell you this is design was never about waiting for a muse, like outside saying, I need a muse to think of being inspired. What was around your house was enough, whether it was an animal, bird, flower, or inanimate also was okay. So this is some of it I'm telling you. This is what I've done. This, other than actually looking at motives of teaching you something, it was also a reflection of what was in society. So look at the weaver. He's gone to the circus, and he's showing you that. He's showing you girls who are holding their hands and playing. It's also a very imaginative thing because you would never see a tiger and a peacock together. But, so this gives you the imagination and creativity to reflect and to really translate it in whichever medium. In this medium, it was the loom. So that is very, yeah, it is. I don't have a picture of Sarojini Naidu, but she was, everyone knows about her. But look at it. She too used the metaphor of a weaver to write this beautiful poem. And it's very important to understand that there are three phases of man. That is at child, a newborn child, and at marriage, and at death. For all this, the weaver was important. He made cloth for different occasions. So what was it about weaving that created so much of philosophy and used very simple languages? Okay, I'm going to close by this last slide. And this is, yeah, this is unbelievable. This is part of our Independence Day production. I mean, this had, it was at Independence Day. That was in when at Independence. If you notice, you could see the Parliament House. You could see peace doves towards the globe, and you could see the sea, and you could see sailboats. So it's brilliant. Yeah, it is brilliant because one of my weavers came into the museum and saw this, and he said, I'll give you my mother's sari. Mother was ashamed to wear it, and so it sits in my museum. But I just want to tell you what independence meant to a small weaver in a small village in Tamil Nadu. It spoke about democracy, a new country. You have the Parliament House, and peace doves going towards global peace, towards a globe. And it goes through air, it goes through water, and it goes through land. And I think that was the understanding of what democracy, what independence was, why it was necessary that we had, and why we should treasure it. I think, thank you.